Welcome to Tome Travelers. This week we travel into a tome where superheroes begin to suddenly exist in our era with Aberrant. Golden Age or Hell on Earth? To the residents of the Trinity Universe, the 21st century was a monstrous era when mad gods ran rampant across the world. But is this truth or OpNet propaganda? What was the age of Aberrants really like? Find out the truth. It's not what you expect. Good evening and welcome to Tome Travelers. This is Roxy.
Hey, and this is John. How you doing?
We are back recording. We've kind of taken a break for the holidays a little bit, and so it's good to get back into this.
We are, of course, this week going into Aberrant, which was an RPG originally by White Wolf Publications in 1999. Now, it's kind of interesting. I just want to note before we get into it that people are going to be like, well, why did you start with Aberrant? Because Aberrant wasn't the first one in this series.
Oh, okay.
There's actually a game before this called Adventure.
Oh, I see. Okay, yes. I noticed that in the notes that you refer to that.
It is interesting that we're going to go ahead and start a little bit differently with this one because this is the one I really have the most experience with, and this is how I was introduced into this universe.
Well, that makes sense for us.
Historical info, of course, always when we're dealing with this. You know, we always try and date the book and the time when it comes out.
Yeah, there is that thing where we can say a year, and your brain may not necessarily realize how long ago some of these things were or how recent they were, depending on the year that we're talking about. But 1999, I still am very much in the mindset that 1999 was, or the 90s were 10 years ago. That's hard for me to shake because we're sitting here almost 20 years from that time period. But yeah, we have lots of things that are very memorable to me because in 99, I was a freshman in high school. So this is very much...
Yeah, this would be...
This is the stuff that I remember. This was very formative for me. So I remember Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, coming out. I didn't go see it because I wasn't a Star Wars fan.
Oh, okay.
No, we didn't.
See, you might be better off that way because I went and saw it, and I was probably the only one in my group of friends that liked it.
The only Star Wars movie... Now, I may be remembering incorrectly. Mm-hmm. The only Star Wars movies that I remember seeing in theater, besides this recent batch, were the remasters of the original trilogy, because my dad wanted to see them in the theater again.
Yeah, I did that too.
But I don't think we saw any of them until they came out on DVD, and probably not for a while. Dad hadn't seen the prequels, I don't think, until I was out of high school. So
wow. They were okay. I of course.
We'll save a Star Wars prequel debate because I don't want to hear anything from the comments about, because they're really they have their place. Everyone has different opinions on where that place is. So,
but we did have other movies that came out that year, and when you try and line these up to be in the same year, you get it feels really odd.
Now,
you're like, was that really that?
You have the Matrix on here. I thought the first Matrix came out in 97.
It was listed for still grossing in theaters in 99, and so that where I was looking up, and and then of course there was also Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me.
Yeah, there's another movie I didn't like. I don't like Austin Powers. I think they're kind of stupid. They are stupid, but yeah. But it's not funny stupid to me. I think it's just too, I don't know. Mike Myers is here or there with me. I could care less.
It came out at a time in my life when I was that level of maturity where that was my sense of humor. Yeah, you can look at me like that.
It's still your sense of humor.
It's true.
And it's still not very funny.
I like it.
Now, I liked Wayne's World, but that was a lot older and
dealt with music.
I don't think that had anything to do with why I liked or didn't like it. Although I don't like James Bond, so maybe that is why I don't like Austin Powers. Spy movies, those kind of spy movies kind of bore me. I like other spy movies, though, which is weird, but yeah.
Whatever. But music that year. So, because...
Okay, now this...
Yeah.
was everything that was on my
on
my
your
playlist and radio. Oh, well, we didn't have playlists then.
No.
We had mixtapes still, but yeah, or mixed CDs. And I didn't have Britney Spears.
Baby One More Time was, Britney Spears. Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer, which, of course, I think got really popular because that one movie.
Was it Can't Hardly Wait that it was in?
It might have been Can't Hardly Wait or...
or no. No, it wasn't Can't Hardly Wait.
It was the one with Rachel Leigh Cook or something, right?
Oh, was it She's All That?
Yeah, that's one I think.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking of the one with Adrienne Grenier and Melissa Joan Hart, and I can't think of what that one was called. We used to watch all those. No, that was a song by Plum. My bad.
But I Want It That Way by Backstreet Boys.
Oh no, I was into the boy bands. I have shouldered enough mockery for that for a long time, and you know what?
They were popular.
Eat it, guys. I don't care.
They were popular. Okay. They made millions. We can argue and be upset with that forever, whatever. They were popular. Yeah. And they had an influence on the musical genres at that time. So anyway.
Yeah, no, The Matrix did come out in 99. I'm just remembering. Well, see, our first DVD player was a DVD-ROM. Oh. We never bought a DVD player until I was out of high school.
Oh, wow.
So when I was in high school and we had the DVD-ROM, I remember we rented The Matrix, and Dad and I sat in wing chairs at the computer desk watching The Matrix. That's the only time I have ever seen it. So I've only ever seen it on like a 13-inch monitor.
Okay.
I probably owe it another view.
You see, for me, with a lot of those movies and everything else, movies in general is a big thing in my family because I think it's the one time where everybody is on the same page and there's absolute peace is when there's a movie on.
No peace in the Martin household when it came to movie time because Dad and I liked things very differently from Mom. And my sister really didn't care. But especially at that point, we were not all getting together to watch movies at all. So it was because Dad and I like sci-fi and Dad liked fantasy. I did not like fantasy, and Mom liked true crime, or not true crime, but like crime and thrillers and stuff like that. And Dad and I liked those too. Those would be the things that we'd watch together, but Mom was not going to watch The Matrix.
Okay.
And I think she was out of town, and that's why we were watching it.
Now, historical events of that year as well. We have the euro currency was introduced. The infamous impeachment trial of President Bill Clinton with his famous line, depends on what your definition of is. I remember not understanding anything of what was going on with that. I was like, who are these people? Why is this woman, Monica Lewinsky, in the news? Now, what depends on what your definition of is was stupid. It was.
And it was ridiculous. And I can't believe that came out of a president's mouth.
Well,
but
I can understand.
Then again, I live in 2018 now, and things are a lot stupider. So
well, it's one of those things where politics. If there's one thing we have learned though in this century, the start of this century, is that people have different ways of looking at the world, and they are so vastly different. I can almost understand where he was coming from.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because he was getting. I felt he was getting backed into a corner. But anyways, that's kind of.
This is another debate for another time. But this was also the year. I mean, this just tells you where politics were in 1999 when Jesse the Body Ventura is also elected governor of Minnesota. And man, what a wackadoo he is now.
He is
still.
I gotta say that I was kind of a fan of his because I was just like, wow, he sounded like a straight shooter when he came out.
I was a fan of his as a wrestler. My very first wrestling toy, the only wrestling toy that I think I owned until I got my Talking Undertaker in the mid-90s, was a solid rubber Jesse the Body Ventura flexing in pink tights.
Oh, wow.
I had that thing if I can find it, if my parents happen to still have it, I will have to get I think it got chewed on. I think he got eaten by a dog.
That's too bad.
But I used to, because his hand was, he was doing the little gun show thing and his fist was pointing out. Every time I played with him, I had to sing This Old Man, because for some reason that fist pointing out like that made me
Huh.
think of Knick Knack Paddywhack.
Really?
And so every time I'd play with it, I would knock on the ground with his fist.
I would think I'm a little teapot. That's just me.
Yeah, that makes sense, but nope, that did. In fact, I
Oh.
think his other arm was down like that, so he was definitely teapotting, but
But
anyhow, yeah.
And then, of course, final piece of information from that year was the projected year that the 6 billionth human was born on Earth. And
it's a lot of people, man.
it's a lot of people on this freaking planet.
It's way more now.
Yeah. But that gives you some ideas of things that were happening at the same time as this game. Kind of set it up in your brain a little. Aberrant came out from White Wolf Publishing. We were playing so many sword and sorcery games at that time that when this modern game came out, because games have always been either far-flung future or ancient times, medieval or fantasy. So here's this game taking place in the everyday that combined elements of fantasy. It was like, this is what made White Wolf jump out on the bookshelf. It was something different.
Right.
Most people know them for their gothic horror properties, vampires and werewolves and mages. Oh my.
Oh my.
But they were founded in 1991. People kind of remember them, I guess, for their other products, because they actually did a sword and sorcery product actually called Sword and Sorcery, which was kind of a competitor for D&D.
Yeah, the only White Wolf properties that I ever hear people talk about are Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf.
Yeah, that's probably their strongest.
What is it, Werewolf the Changeling or something like that?
Well, Werewolf the Apocalypse is one of
okay.
them, and Werewolf's the something, which the whole White Wolf, naming thing for those properties. They also had Scion, which is one of my favorite series, which just got relaunched on Kickstarter about a year ago. And another well-known one, which we talked about, I think it was Kevin and I were talking about it, Exalted, where basically you're slowly becoming this godlike entity. This game is actually by the same creator, a guy by the name of Robert Hatch.
Okay.
And Aberrant was launched by them.
Very cool.
But it's the second in the Trinity Universe system, but it does use the kind of D10 system similar to the Storyteller system.
The Storyteller system,
Very,
I assume.
Yeah.
Well, I thought most of White Wolf stuff used the Storyteller system.
Most of it does, but White Wolf's had some interesting twists and turns over the years, and we'll get to that. But yeah, Adventure, like I said earlier, was their pulp style gameplay.
So more like 50s, 60s.
Well, kind of, but even earlier than that. I mean, it's like Sky Captain. And like the old radio shows come to life kind of idea.
Interesting.
The Shadow and all that style era. What's the big game where the guy and Laura Bailey does a voice for it, and it's the Tomb Raider, but it's a guy instead.
Oh, Uncharted.
Uncharted is kind of like a pulp style game.
Is it really?
Like that? Yeah.
I just thought it was a male Tomb Raider.
It is basically a male Tomb Raider, but it combines a lot of the elements of that style of storytelling.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that I would liken to perhaps what you're talking about is I was watching somebody play Fallout 4 the other day, and they were doing the silver shadow or the silver streak or whatever.
Yes.
The guy the vigilante in that one area, and he's going around handling all the things like the pulp radio show. So that's what I was thinking and so that to me is more 40s and 50s or 50s and 50s and 60s, but I guess it would be earlier than that. Probably early 50s.
Probably 50s. Musical influences, I think. I felt music played a lot into the whole pulp style of
kind of. I
Rocket Man. Rocket Man is definitely a pulp style as well.
I don't.
The movie Rocket Man, have you never seen it? About the guy.
Are you thinking about Rocketeer?
Oh, Rocketeer. Thank you. Sorry.
Rocket Man was the movie
Rocket.
With the guy that goes into space and he's the idiot.
Oh God, that's a great movie. Yeah, but Rocketeer is definitely...
Rocketeer I saw in like 95. I haven't seen it since. So
the change was from that style gameplay in the same universe to Aberrant, which was a superhero style gameplay. More modern. Picking up the book, it reminds me a lot of the very popular TV shows that have come out recently for superheroes. I mean, it's very much in line with Daredevil.
Like Heroes or something like that? Oh, no, even later than that.
Well, Heroes works well. Powers, which I think you watched a couple episodes of that with me.
Yeah.
And, so that it fits in well with that kind of idea because the heroes are still flawed, and terribly flawed sometimes.
See, I really enjoyed Heroes. I am sad that Heroes went the way that it went. I think the first season of Heroes is amazing.
It was.
And that would make for a great scenario, where everyday people
gain their powers.
Have these things that they don't even realize they have.
And enter into a conspiracy just simply because of that. They stumble into it literally. Yeah, and I love those kind of plots. And then following Aberrant was another gameplay, another game called Aeon. Which was a futuristic style, far-flung future gameplay, mechanic game.
Aeon always sounds very cyberpunky, high-tech, low morality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that. Probably Aeon Flux is why it makes me just think of, which I don't think is necessarily that way, but I always just imagine high-tech ridiculousness, and it's all just super sensualized and... But she was a spy or something, wasn't she?
She was...
Or like an operative, some kind of covert operative.
Covert operative / if you watch the movie, she's also like part of a rebellion against a
I just remember
government.
Liquid Television that it was on.
Liquid Television. The Aeon Flux on that never made much sense, but I loved them.
My friend's dad watched it, and I don't think I was allowed to. It seemed like I would sit there and then he'd realize that there was a child in the room, and he'd be like, "Oh," and he'd make me leave or play something else, or he'd put something else on.
Yeah, because it was an interesting series. But so Aberrant is the middle book in this series, and every game followed that kind of nomenclature of starting with the A, Adventure, Aberrant, Aeon.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came out from White Wolf, it actually I felt did fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
It had tons of books and companions. They actually went through 2 editions, of Aberrant. For the core book, they had, they really put into it, like the storyteller's screen, 2 adventure books, a player's guide.
Yeah, I'm looking at the source books that were released, and it's quite a list.
Extensive, yes, and I felt did really well, but this is also around the time of kind of the start of the role-play kind of bust, where all of a sudden role-playing games started to dwindle in popularity in comparison to Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition and 3.5 at that point.
Right.
And then everybody hopped on D20, which is what White Wolf did with this property. They put out a version of this game in 2004 that was a D20 Aberrant. And I feel like that, they didn't put out as many books for it at that time. And I feel like that was probably the wrong move to make because, everybody was hopping on the fantasy vibe again and leaving all these other properties behind, which were dwindling. Game stores weren't carrying them as often because, let's be honest, Amazon and the power that online shopping has today really didn't hold anything. I mean, you really had to rely on stores carrying your books.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, where are you going to get it? How's it going to get sold? I was kind of lucky. Around that time, I was living in College Station, and I was introduced to the game Aberrant by a friend of mine named Brian. And he rolled this game and ran it for myself and a couple friends. And that's basically where I first got started with it. So I actually have the book down here today so we can take a look at it and whatnot. Aberrant, the book, it is a softbound book.
Baptized in quantum fires, reborn as incarnate gods, drunk with fame, sacrificed on the altar of power. We are your heroes, your legends, your icons. Beware.
Mm-hmm.
Your legacy is our future.
And it kind of runs with the TV show Powers, where here are these superpowered beings. They're becoming the equivalent of rock stars. just because all of a sudden here are these guys and they're doing these things and they're fighting crime and they're fighting other enemies. But then you get into this era later on where the game becomes more like The Incredibles, where being a superhero is now illegal. And forces are tracking you down, putting you down or taking you out or arresting you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really interesting kind of. Early on, it's got even City of Heroes is very much like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that gritty feel to it near the end, but it has this kind of future hopefulness to it. And yeah,
and this came out in 99.
This came out in 99.
Okay. First impressions, my opinion. I would never touch this book.
Yeah.
This is an awful looking book.
Yeah.
The art style on the cover is Amazing Stories 1987 kind of crap.
Yes.
I mean, I shouldn't call it crap.
No. This was part of the problem of this property.
It looks awful. It looks like it's something I would never want to touch.
This is the problem of this property: is people would walk into bookstores and see this on shelves of local, your local friendly gaming store, and think it was a comic book or something else. They wouldn't, and you flip through the first few pages.
And it is a comic book, and it's a.
You flip through the first few pages, and you have no idea this is a game.
No, I mean,
it feels like it's a weird storybook.
What I feel like is really not smart too. You open it up, you've got a title splash page that says Aberrant. It's black with yellow stylized text.
Yep.
And then it immediately goes into a website. It looks like it's a website printed out.
Which was pretty cool at that time.
I mean, it looks like the E Entertainment logo, except it's an N instead of an E on the exclamation point.
Yeah.
But it's all this. It doesn't even tell you what you're looking at.
No, it doesn't.
And I'll be 100% on the back of the book is more crappy art. It's not. There's no text except for the name of the book and the White Wolf Game Studios logo.
Yes.
So,
and
how would you know?
Looking at it, it looks like a indie comic tome. Like
it is, because it's also the smaller. It's bigger, I think, than a trade paperback size.
Yeah.
It seems a little larger, but I'd have to go get one to. But yeah, the first several pages look like it's like a website. It's got a search bar on the side, and it's entertainment. But just flipping through it, compared to the other White Wolf books that I've seen.
Yes,
especially
now, I don't know if
they were
ones. Yeah.
The World of Darkness books that we've played with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're a lot newer than this.
Much newer.
Are they much newer? Okay.
Much newer. We're talking almost.
We're production
talking over 10 years.
Production value skyrockets.
Oh yeah.
From this, I would never touch this.
No. There are 5 books by White Wolf before it got bought out by CCP. That those 5 books I consider to be the height of the perfect game book. I mean, I look at the layout and the design, and I almost, I know it sounds stupid, and I'm kind of the artsy-fartsy guy, but I almost weep looking at some of the layout because I'm like, this is what a game is supposed to look like. But then you look at this book, and you're like, what?
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense at all.
No. I passed by that book a million times until a friend of mine put it, in my hand. And I did not realize what this was. And it
kind of, I don't know. There are certain art styles that just really don't appeal to me.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is the one. And on the inside, once you get past all the crappy website stuff at the beginning, that is just gaudy
and horribly dated at this time.
Oh yeah, they have like space shuttles and stuff. But anyway, but yeah, once you get through the silly comic at the front, that
is about the first third of the book.
Well, I guess maybe, but the comic, I can't even tell you. I have never seen a comic book with so much text.
Yeah,
the amount of text that they're cramming into these speech bubbles
is beyond Apartment 3B.
I just couldn't. No. This would not be the thing, but then you go from that, which is on not horrible paper, but it's
Mhm.
it's it's in color and it's glossy. And then you go to the rule set, and it's cheaper paper.
Yes.
It's black and white.
It's
all
less expensive artwork.
less expensive artwork.
Not saying anything bad about the artist. I'm saying that this is what they probably went for. They put a whole bunch of money into that first portion of the book,
and
then not into the rest of it.
Not into the rest of it. And so, I mean, it kind of like parts of it, I don't know.
It doesn't jump out at you. Also, the text is small. The paragraphs are blocky.
Yeah, and they use.
You know.
There's just as someone who does layout and doesn't do it well, there are a few things that I don't like seeing, and one of the things that I don't like seeing in here is there is a horrible overuse of hyphenation at the end of lines and paragraphs, and it just like this one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
There are 10 lines in this one 6-inch block of text that end in a hyphen.
Oh yeah.
And it's just I don't know. It just looks roughly made.
Yep. What's that called? Orphaning? No, I can't remember. I don't remember all my terms anymore.
No, but it's just.
But the thing is, it does not jump out at you as a high production book.
Yeah, I wouldn't know it was a game.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You would not, looking at this, know that this is a game. And production value for games has drastically changed. And
I was going to say, because really, what is that one that you had me roll a character for? Heroes, or was it just Hero? Heroes Unlimited.
Oh, Heroes Unlimited is also...
Different game company, but that was
Palladium.
A hard book to get through.
Quite frankly, and I'm going to say this, even though I do like Palladium RPGs, we will never review them on this show, because they are all still in production, because Palladium never stops doing what they do. So we don't deal with games that are in production, that are, you could buy the exact same Ninjas and Super Spies book today in a bookstore that I bought back in the 80s. So yeah, so Palladium, and that's Palladium. That's what they do. They do their black and white art. They do their big block text layouts.
Yeah. This just suffers horribly from it's just text. A little image. Text.
Yep.
I mean, there look like flipping through, there's a lot of what looks to be cool abilities.
Oh yeah. No.
So I'm not gonna knock what the content is, because it might be a great game.
Yeah.
But I will say there's a ton. Character creation feels like it will be a chore.
It is definitely different for character creation, because I mean, obviously you're dealing with something that has the most variety. I think superpowers is probably one of the most varied things that you're going to deal with in any kind of game, because I mean, now this is a game I think Palladium does well, and that's Heroes Unlimited. The game we were actually talking about. It has 3 books of powers beyond the core book. And I would place that their listing of powers is in the hundreds. So here's a book that, or a genre that kind of is almost required. But, talking about the mechanics in this book, it is the D10 storyteller system. This is kind of like version 1 of that, which is a very popular system now. I don't know if anybody truly holds the rights to anything so specific with that, because it's the whole make your pool. It's a dice pool game. Mm-hmm. Make your pool of dice. This certain range is considered successes. Roll all your dices. Count your successes.
Right.
But so on top of the characters having various superpowers in this game, the characters can also develop super stats.
I like this. Here, you decide what your character was like prior to his eruption.
That sounds...
Thank you, White Wolf, for the most uncomfortable sentence I've ever read.
Yeah. So super stats, you could have like super strength, super dexterity, super charisma,
Does everything have super in front of it?
Kind of,
no,
but
it doesn't.
It also has...
teams, you have how to create a team, you have allegiances.
one of the things that this game introduced that I did not like, I will be straight up honest, is that the superpowers have limitations.
You didn't like that.
Well, here's the thing. White Wolf has always, in all their games, found a way to keep the characters in line to some extent, to keep them from pushing boundaries. Vampires in White Wolf games have blood points, and your powers as a vampire run off those blood points. When you start to dwindle in those, you can't do anything more. There's, I think, rage in werewolf, and when you run out of rage, you can't do anything else as a werewolf. In mage, I think it's Numina or something like that, where basically you have these spell points, and when you run out of the points, you're done. So it's not like, it's there's not even a role really involved in all that. It is, you had these points, be wise, spend them wisely. And when they're gone until you rest or feed or do whatever. And so I don't like that in my superhero games, because it makes the characters feel very mortal. In my superhero games, I want the characters to feel like they are super almost all the time. And then, that's one of the things I think Mask does well. The Mask's the new generation. Yeah. I think that's something that they do extremely well.
Yeah, that... Okay, now I know that we're talking 20 years difference in publishing time, but when I would think of that RPG in that core book and what we see there, I think it does what this wants to do much more concisely, and with much better eye-catching graphics.
Now, also because this is a White Wolf property from this era in White Wolf, which is kind of the first era of Vampire the Masquerade and all these things, is that they made a large overarching story.
I was noticing here that it says Aberrant is a prequel game to White Wolf's Trinity science fiction role-playing game. A far future setting featuring evolved humans known as Scions. As such, events in the Aberrant storyline influence and are influenced by the Trinity storyline.
So you are a character with minor influence on the actions of the world as a whole. And you will have to react to what is taking place. All these events are going to happen, and that's just how it is. And you are moving towards the ultimate goal, which is... basically, your character is going to be illegal eventually. White Wolf does this with their properties where there's this overarching story, and you will arrive at it. Like, Vampire had Gehenna. It had basically the ancient vampires come back and destroy the younger vampires.
Yeah, well, this talks about, beyond what I read, the next sentence is, according to the Trinity timeline, relations between humans and Novas will gradually worsen, culminating in the Great Aberrant War of 2049 to 2061. Certain characters introduced in this book will have a greater or lesser impact on the events that lead to and follow the Aberrant War. So, I guess, Novas, is that what you are?
Yes, that's why the N...
It's your official... that's where the N came from, because I was looking for that and I couldn't figure out.
So, I mean, that's this... Ultimately, like you pointed out, it leads us into the universe of Aeon, where the legends of the Aberrants was that they were the evil overlords of mankind, making life impossible for the common man. That is kind of this thing with White Wolf, is small picture, big picture. You are influencing the small picture and reacting to the big picture, which is kind of cool. And I guess that's how life really is. We're very rarely do any of us get to be part of the big picture. So, like I said, though, as far as my interactions with the game was a friend of mine, Brian, basically ran this game for me and ran it where we were, myself and a friend, teenagers who developed superpowers suddenly.
And this was also a LARP, huh?
Yeah, some people did try to LARP this. It never took off in White Wolf as an official for the Camarilla group LARPing, but I never got into that part of it. I never knew anybody who actually ran it. But it would be 100%, compatible with their LARPing system because it runs on that, their D10 storyteller system, which is very interchangeable. I played a character that was, the preppy kid, and we rolled up our powers randomly entirely, and I ended up pretty much almost a Superman ripoff. Super strength, super ability to take damage.
Godlike powers.
Yeah. While my companion ended up with the ability of matter manipulation. And so he could actually create shape and, break down matter. Had a great time in that game because the way it worked was all of a sudden, here you are, you have these powers, and you're still in a real life situation. You're not somebody running around in tights and a cape necessarily. And how are you going to react when the government comes for you? How are you going to react? And I really enjoyed that game. Mm-hmm. And some of the games that I run as a GM for different superhero style games is because of that. That's why I really like Masks.
Right.
Is because the opportunity to take a game and say, hey, we're going to play, youth reacting to this situation. Because I find that I really enjoy that. And I think comics for my generation, a lot of the Teen Titans, X-Men, those comics influence the way that we see the superhero genre as a whole. But nowadays, finding Aberrant is pretty difficult.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because this game, after its 2004 release, the D20 version just went dormant. This was a victim of the bust. When all of a sudden people were this like, I see the D20 logo, and even though I know how the system works, I don't really need that book. And it pretty much went underground. It ended up getting published, or not published, but purchased along with the other properties from White Wolf to CCP, which I mentioned before, which was a company overseas. They basically bought the whole library of White Wolf products with the intent of slowly making MMOs out of them.
Oh, okay.
There was an intent to make a vampire MMO. And there was official artwork done. They hired some people to do writing for it. I think Dan Abnett was actually hired as a writer for them to come in and do some scripting. Mm-hmm. So they put a lot of money into it, but it never ultimately went anywhere.
Yeah.
Eventually, a company that we now know today as Onyx Path Publishing purchased it with the line of old White Wolf products to be remade.
Yeah, an Onyx Path name has come up many times.
Yeah.
In our discussions.
Yeah, Onyx Path is a great company that is bringing these games back out and, doing republishing and reformatting and fixing, honestly, in my opinion, some of the issues with these games when they came out the first time. But they still keep true to what they were.
Are they the ones that are doing all the new World of Darkness stuff?
No, they are basically taking the old stuff and updating it and fixing it. There is an actual White Wolf publications that has launched, which has the guy that
the Ken Hite.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember if that was White Wolf or not.
No, well that part is White Wolf, but Onyx Path, probably more for Pugmire. Yeah. Which I am very impressed that it has gained such a respectable following. There are people who see Pugmire and I don't remember what it's called, but something of Meowth, the cat equivalent.
There's a cat one too.
People really are enjoying those, and I'm very happy for them because those have actually done really well as an original publication. And I think...
Well, now see, okay, on the Onyx Path Publishing website, though, they have the World of Darkness.
Yeah, they. But
it's a separate company.
They can basically... all their stuff is set in years prior and uses the years prior material.
Oh, okay, I see.
White Wolf will be publishing this new edition that's coming out that's in playtesting phases right now and is getting a lot of interesting press. And if y'all want to know what that is, go out there and research because people could spend probably hours just talking about the new White Wolf getting built. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm a huge fan of this community, and there are still to this day huge fans, like bigger fans than I am. There are websites for Aberrant that still are out there that run big community games, And there are groups that are still publishing and maintaining fan fiction for this, universe.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is, when you have that loyal a fan following, why is this not getting more press? Why is this not further out than it is?
Yeah.
Because, that kind of fan following is what I feel relaunched Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars never really went away, but it was the fans who were rabid, and the guys that made like the silly Troops, which was the Cops ripoff, fan-made films. All that kind of stuff is what relaunched that. So why isn't this really getting more press? It's hard to say, but it could be because now there are superhero games out there that do it better.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah,
because I've never seen, for all the news that I follow, I've not seen anything about Aberrant or Aeon or Adventure.
And that's part of the thing is...
the only things I hear about White Wolf are Vampire.
Yeah.
Vampire and Werewolf.
Even in Onyx Publishing, they are putting out the old Vampire games and whatnot. Even those games are getting more press. But at the same time, we wouldn't hear Aberrant normally being spoken of because the new books that are being put out by Onyx Press
are Trinity,
specifically carrying the Trinity Universe moniker.
Yeah, so I was just looking at that, and they call it something else.
Yeah.
I was trying to pull up DTRPG for something, and it
the drive-through RPG, yeah.
Yeah, and it was crashing on me.
The games are stored there. They are available for purchase. There was rumor for a while that a lot of the older books, like Aberrant, were available for free, but that is not the case.
The Trinity Continuum is coming soon to Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So it may not...
It's probably something set in the same universe, but yeah, I'm very interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, Trinity Continuum Aberrant is the next edition of the Superpowers game Aberrant, released in '99. Mm-hmm. So it does update the mechanics somewhat.
Good.
But you can get Aberrant First Edition, so you can get this book
specifically,
essentially under their publishing imprint on Drive-Thru RPG, with the new one coming soon to Kickstarter.
Yeah, and I have tried to look for the Kickstarter for that, and or at least more information. I have not found anything yet.
Looks like the most recent thing was September of last year. So
yeah, so
they're still working on it.
Crossing our fingers and hoping and waiting. So that will definitely be something to watch for.
Mm-hmm.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to look at it, just because it's funny because this is not what I was expecting when I said let's go ahead and do Aberrant. When you brought this down, I was like, what is this?
I know it's
so it'll be interesting to look at it a little bit more when we do character creation.
And I am truly curious and waiting to see what Onyx Path does with it. So that will be cool. So anyway, so when we come back for our next episode, we're going to go ahead and make a character for this.
I'll make an Amazing Stories worthy character.
All right. Thank you guys, and we'll see y'all soon.
Alrighty, bye guys. You've been listening to Tome Travelers. Please subscribe to get our episodes as soon as they release. For more information about us, check out PassionNerdly.com, @PassionNerdly on Twitter and Instagram, as well as Facebook.com/PassionNerdly. Also, if you're interested in supporting our show, look us up at Patreon.com/PassionNerdly. Once again, thank you for listening.
This has been a production of the Southgate Media Group. For more podcasts like this one, head over to SouthgateMediaGroup.com.